Hello everyone, Charcoal here and welcome to another discussion video. If you've read Wings of Fire, you've probably heard of Animus Magic. Lots of fantasy stories have their own magic system, and this is Wings of Fire's. It's one of the most iconic things about the series, but unfortunately it's also one of the most controversial, and for good reason. What do I mean? Let's find out. Before we can talk about what's wrong with Animus Magic, we first need to understand what it is and its role in the series. Animus Magic as a concept was introduced in Book 2, and it's been a major part of the series ever since. Essentially, it's a very rare power that allows someone to enchant basically anything to do basically anything. Supposedly, the only thing it can't do is bring someone back from the dead. The user needs an object to enchant, but seemingly entire rooms and even other dragons count as objects. The size of the object and its relation to whatever is affected by the enchantment doesn't affect the strength of the spell, as we saw in Book 10 when Anemone was able to teleport 2 entire armies back to their respective kingdoms by enchanting Kibli's library card. There is supposedly the caveat of losing a bit of your soul with each spell you cast, gradually turning you evil, but this hasn't been 100% confirmed. As far as who can get it, it's passed down genetically, and any descendants of an Animus can pass down the gene, but the chances drop as you get farther from the most recent actual Animus. So yeah, Arctic running away didn't steal Animus Magic from the Ice Wings, it was just awful genetic luck that they never got another one, and now their odds are reduced to basically nothing. In the first arc, Animus Magic was mainly used to explain the existence of any magic items, nothing super important yet. In the second arc, it was brought to the forefront of the series, especially in books 9 and 10, as well as Legends Darkstalker. They took a deep dive into the specifics of it, or lack thereof, and how powerful it really is. Then the third arc threw Animus Magic out the window with Boa's spell to take away all current Animus Dragons' powers, but presumably they're still able to pass on the genes, so Animus Magic may rise again someday. But aside from that, Animus Magic sounds pretty cool, right? But this video is titled the way it is for a reason, so what exactly is the problem with it? By far, the most glaring problem with Animus Magic is that it's just way too overpowered. Let's look at Dungeons & Dragons as an example. There is a specific list of spells to choose from, each with their own unique effects. Depending on your character class, you only get access to some of that list or none at all, and even then you have to pick and choose which ones from your section you actually want. And you can only cast so many spells before needing a rest. Every good magic system needs limits like that, especially if you're putting that magic in the hands of the protagonists. There has to be some sort of major drawback that the characters need to find a way to work around, or else there's no story, because otherwise they can just solve all their problems immediately. The only limitation of Animus Magic is that you can't resurrect the dead, but that means literally anything else is fair game. Make someone into a completely different person? Done. Take away someone else's powers? Done. Take over the entire world? Basically no one can stop you. This is a problem because every time an Animus is faced with a dilemma in this series that isn't another Animus, they should be able to fix it with no issue, but then they're painted as an idiot when they do something other than the obvious solution that would get them what they wanted way faster. If they have some form of honor like Orca and actively choose not to use their powers to help them because they don't want to rely on them, sure, that's fine. Or if they're unambitious like Jerboa and just want to live a happy life alone with their daughter, I have no problem with that. But if they're trying to do something on a grand scale that could really only be accomplished with magic, that's when you run into some trouble. No character in the series has this problem more than Darkstalker. Want to keep tabs on other Animus Dragons? Don't just make your spell tell you when and where a spell is cast. Wouldn't you feel a lot safer knowing who cast it and what it does? Want to kill the Ice Wings? Just make them drop dead, no need for a plague. Want to make everyone a little more trusting of you so you can take over the world? Just make everyone immediately loyal to you instead of keeping the process a mild struggle and leaving room for dissenters to rise up against you. Turtle is a threat? Why lock him up after taking his powers away? You have no need for him. Why not just kill him? You don't even need your powers to do that, you're literally more than 10 times his size. Sure, Turtle had made himself invincible by that point, but Darkstalker could just take the invincibility spell off. There are no rules, none, that say Darkstalker wouldn't be able to do any of what I just listed. I love the second arc, I really do, but this is by far my biggest issue with it. It brings Animus Magic to the forefront of the plot, but fails to establish any sort of explicit limitations and opens up a multitude of plot holes because of it. Shockingly, it doesn't detract much from my enjoyment of these books. I still like them a lot, but when it comes to Animus Magic, you really can't think about it for more than 10 seconds before realizing the only reason these characters aren't smarter with their powers is so the plot can happen. And of course, Animus Magic doesn't just plague the second arc. The third also has some issues that arise from it. After Darkstalker, basically the single most powerful villain you could have in Wings of Fire, how are you supposed to raise the stakes in the next arc? I know, have your greatest weapon against the new villain conveniently stop working. Boa's spell is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we no longer have to worry about characters seeming stupid for not using the obvious solution, because said obvious solution is now gone, but it's a curse because it showcases how problematic Animus Magic is. It was so overpowered that Tui had to bullshit it out of the story, I say again, just so the plot could happen. So you might be wondering, Charcoal, what is the point of this video? Why just make a rant about something a lot of people watching this probably already agree with you on? Well, I'm getting to that. It's time for the part of this video that I'm actually really excited about. It's time to fix Animus Magic. Here's how I would do it. As I've already said, the main problem with Animus Magic is that it has no limits, so I'm gonna give it some. We're going to have the same system we had before of passing on powers through genetics, still no bringing people back from the dead, spells can only be cast on an object that the Animus is touching, whether it's through speech or through thought, dragons cannot be enchanted directly, and any object with a spell that affects a dragon's mental or physical status needs to be constantly touching that dragon for the spell to remain in effect. An Animus cannot give Animus powers to someone or take away the powers of another Animus. They can, however, voluntarily give up their own powers. Now, how do the spells themselves work? I came up with a system of conditions and outcomes. Here are some examples of what an Animus can do. 1. Give an object a simple command, such as when Turtle told his earring to put itself on his ear. 2. Have a condition or multiple conditions and an outcome, like Turtle's stick. The condition is being held by someone and the outcome is hiding the holder from Darkstalker's awareness. An example of multiple conditions would be Turtle's piece of coral. The two conditions are being held by someone and being told an item or person to find. Then the outcome is leading the holder to that item or person. 3. Having a condition or multiple conditions that trigger a check of something, and then depending on the result of the check, a different outcome will occur. The example here is the Eye of Onyx. The condition is being held, and the check is whether or not the holder is worthy of being the Sandwing Queen. If they are, the outcome is nothing. If they aren't, the outcome is that, well, they die. But there are some more limitations that come with this. If a command spell is put on something, it cannot be enchanted again until its assigned task is completed or the Animus that gave it the command calls it off. If one of those condition spells is on something, it can only be enchanted again if the original caster removes the spell. You also can't give it a command and a condition spell, nor can you give a condition spell multiple outcomes at once. For example, you can't command something to chase and attach itself to someone while also having some condition spell on it that affects the target. And that's it, folks. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it was the best I could come up with. Obviously, not every enchantment that's been cast in the series would be able to be cast now with this new system in place, but it would be fun to think about what would change because of this. Who knows, maybe that'll be another AU series for me to do once Falcon is done. Now it's fan art time. Today's featured fan art comes from Flicker, Venom Flare, Zoomer the Weimar Wolf, Shadiel Zale, and Silvertail. Thanks a bunch, guys, and if any of you watching want to submit your own fan art, you can do so in my Discord server. One last thing, Book 15 is finally upon us, and I have not yet received my copy at the time of this recording, but I look forward to talking about it. This has been Wings of Charcoal, and I will see you guys next week with my thoughts on the Flames of Hope.